We're fighting the extraction of water from an aquifer in Belfast. 2 water bottling companies have been granted 3 consents to take 24 million litres of water a day from those aquifers. We've launched High Court judicial review proceedings and we're attempting to overturn those consents in the High Court. Our argument is that ECan followed an unlawful process in the way it dealt with those consents and in granting those consents. They adopted a process that we believe has no basis in law. It also ran completely contrary to their own land and water regional plan, and it resulted in practice in them ignoring and believing they were entitled to ignore environmental effects of the consents that had been applied for. My reading, my research on the water bottling industry, my knowledge of the effects of massive irrigation takes in Canterbury is that our water security and water sovereignty is being put at risk. They're unsustainable. The long-term effects are likely to be extremely damaging to the environment. My view is that they put the water security of the community of Christchurch and the community of Canterbury at unacceptable risk. This is a New Zealand-wide issue. We have people in our group who are battling for protection of their community water resources in the far north of New Zealand. We have people in Whangarei who are battling to preserve an aquifer there that's at risk. We have the Te Waikaropupu Springs in Tasman, which is under threat. We have an aquifer in the central North Island, which is under threat. So this is a nationwide issue. I mean, where it comes from is a worldview that's becoming increasingly prevalent. It's being pushed by corporates, by worldwide banks, by water bottling companies, and their attempt, if you look at it at a macro level, is to gain control of the worldwide water resources so that rather than taking water from a tap, you buy your water from a water bottler. A major question we need to resolve is who actually owns the water, and even beyond that, who has the rights to manage the water and who has the rights to make use of the water. Because it then involves Māori rights and we can't get away from that. Ownership is probably a concept that was a little bit foreign to Māori, so the more important issue I think is who has the rights to use and management of the water, who is the kaitiaki of the water, and those are the sort of conversations that we need to have. My personal view is that we need to get to a position where water is treated as a commons, where it's treated as a community resource, and primarily it's valued as the source of maintaining life for our communities and for our planet, rather than as an economic resource which is there to be exploited. The trouble with TPP is that it creates a culture of exploitation of water, and it basically underlies that paradigm that water is there to be exploited and that we have no legitimate reason for preventing overseas companies from accessing our water provided they have obtained the site and provided they're not breaching our environmental standards. But one of the big problems we've got at Belfast in particular is that we actually do have environmental standards there. The aquifers from which that water is being drawn are deemed to be fully allocated, and there were not in fact supposed to be any further water takes from those aquifers. ECan devised a process that allowed them to do so. So our major problem is that our own regulators aren't even following their own rules, let alone the leg up that's being given to foreign corporates under TPP. I don't talk corruption. What I talk about is a worldview that favours exploitation and favours corporates ahead of communities, that favours the rights to profit from resources over and above the necessity of protecting and preserving those resources for future generations. It's basically a sick worldview that unfortunately has captured Western society. And it's captured the regulators at ECan as much as it's captured corporates, banks and all manner of people. The water bottling industry has said that the enemy is community water supplies and the communities. So if communities want to protect their water supplies, if they want to protect their water safety and their water sovereignty, they need to get very clear about what's actually happening. There is a concerted assault on the community right to take their own water. Communities really need to look behind just their immediate issue and see that what they're actually fighting is a worldview that is determined to deprive them of their rights to water. And in fact, the CEO of Nestle in 2005 said quite categorically that the belief that we have a right to water is what he called, and I quote him, an extreme solution So that's the sort of worldview and the sort of mindset that we're battling.